Octopus Films presents Political Corrections, Part 1, The World Without Borders. Now, Wikipedia tells us that borders define a geographic boundaries between political entities or legal jurisdictions, such as governments, sovereign states, federative states, subnational entities, some borders, such as the state's internal administrative border, interstate border, their borders are partially or fully controlled and may be crossed only legally at the designated border checkpoints. And border zones may be controlled by the mob. So borders are boundaries between groups of people. There's a border that separates VIPs from ordinary folks, for instance. There's a border right here in my door. That's my border there. And there's a border that separates Beverly Hills from East LA. Borders are boundaries between people. People look for ways to exclude others from their territory. Human animals, a territorial beast. Not a big fan of man. Violent, irrational, predatory, selfish, it's all we got to work with. Borders exist because people want them. Some European borders originate from former aristocratic land ownership. Ownership. Borders delineate ownership. My house, my car, my state, my nation. Borders change when ownership changes. Germany invades Poland, Russia invades Berlin, the USA invades everybody else. Folks benefit from borders by creating controls and payments. I said folks benefit from borders by creating controls and payments in order to permit folks alien to themselves entering their homes. Borders therefore are a measurement of evil. Measurement of selfishness. How is it possible that there are millions of abandoned and used buildings and homes and millions of homeless children all over the world? Because homeowners prefer not to share their space with those who need it most. No place on earth as more contested and detestable than the borders of Israel. as Israelis and Palestinians fight and die for a few feet of land. And the border between Guatemala and Mexico breaks the Mayan nation into two separate and distinct groups. Mexican and Guatemalan are just Mayan. If you ask me, it's a border created by Europeans imposing themselves over the Mayans. The maritime border is a division enclosing an area in the ocean where a nation has exclusive rights over the mineral and biological resources, encompassing maritime features, limits, zones, borders, representing the jurisdictional borders of a maritime nation and recognized by the United Nations Convention of the Law and Sea. Maritime borders exist in the context of territorial waters, and exclusive economic zones. However, the terminology does not encompass lake or river boundaries, which are considered within the context of land boundaries. I say pirates do not recognize such stupidity. But we somehow think of pirates as the bad guys. Something's wrong somewhere. I say whales and dolphins have no problem breaking maritime border laws. Nobody seems to mind that. My particular border dispute is the border between Mexico and the US of A. It's a personal dispute. My mama's Mexican and my daddy is a gringo man. Sometime I cross the border with my beard long. Folks don't like it. I get checked, rechecked, tied up, sequestered, bothered. Gringos don't like troubles from us. And even it's worse because most Mexicans, unlike me, don't have the US passport. Not during my psychedelic experience. Borders are seen for what they are, an illusion of fantasy, a big old fat lie. borders are a lie, a very big lie told by millions of us sleeping, and millions who don't know what the truth is, even if it makes them really sad. Now the pirate loves of borders, and now boy, he's constantly chased by police who say they are rigorous law enforcers around. Law enforcers around. But they reinforce the border laws, which are a lie. Now tell me, is there a difference between a Mexican child and a gringo baby? Is there a difference? Are they somehow not the same during the psychedelic experience? We recognize the borders between animals and plants, and that is also just a lie. We have more in common with a tree, a cow, an octopus, with a little help of little LSD, peyote mushrooms, to remind us humans that we are not the top of the evolutionary chain. We're just a little bit experienced. A terrible mistake. A horrible lie. How can we undo it? How can we begin to tell the truth between ourselves? Who would think and world citizen Gary Davis renounced his U.S. citizenship at the UN office in France and declared himself a world citizen, effectively renouncing all borders as illegal, useless, and automated. Now, those of you who agree with me that borders and nations are useless things should Google Gary Davis and his World Citizen Movement. Maybe you will be getting into a World Citizen Passport, which is, by the way, validated by the United Nations and usually reserved for folks who have been left nationless. Now, borders benefit the rich at the cost of making the poor homeless and unable to move from one place to another at their will and at their wishes. The gigantic border enforcing agencies like Homeland Security in the USA are basically telling us that we can't really go where we want to go, and they invalidate, therefore, completely the freedoms that are guaranteed by the very Constitution that the nation proposes to defend. There is no surprise there. The USA has been acting to destroy rising democratic nations for decades by supporting tyrants and to help their economic causings instead of applying their concept of freedom to the whole world, which is what the whole world really wants them to do. Now, here I'm going to get a little serious and I'm going to take the guitar off, because in late November of 1991, some 64 prisoners at the New York Comstock prison put their signatures to a document formally renouncing their citizenship in a nation bent on spitting on their alleged freedoms. The document expresses historical and contemporary beliefs that demand severance from the land of tortured birth. I'm not going to go into the document, but needless to say, their petition was denied. So these American citizens were not able to renounce their citizenship and therefore be protected under the UN. world citizens or whatever. And they stayed in jail, see? But if we observe the history of our species, which has borders painted with the blood of untold wars and hundreds of millions of soldiers who fought these wars to protect their nations from each other, we must conclude that it is time now. We are ready. We are there, ready to evolve from this primitive and stupid and useless thinking of nation states. Just imagine if all humankind suddenly declared all borders, all nations null and void, and the passage of people and goods from one place to another as a guaranteed human right. Such a passage to be made unmolested by any authority or coercive force. No more nations, no more borders, no more tariffs, taxes, visas, or any other kind of financial benefit created from not permitting people and goods to go where they need to go. Now, I'll give you a perfect for instance. You can't transport marijuana from Denver to Fargo, North Dakota without getting arrested. Marijuana is legal in Denver, it's not legal in Fargo. And you can grow your weed in Denver, but you can't grow it in Fargo. So if you're in Fargo, you probably want some Denver marijuana, and you really can't get it because there's lots of police and, folks determined to stop that product from reaching its destination. Now, I ask you two things. Is that logical? Well, no, of course not. Is it useful? Does it serve the greater good? Definitely not. So why is it there? It's there for economic interests and the creation of these security forces that enforce them. Okay? When we get that through our thick heads, we begin to evolve and get out of the syndrome of not doing what we have to do. Now, I thought of a solution, and I'll share it with you. I'll give it to you free. It would be a kind of world travel security force. Now, this would be a military organization backed by the United Nations that would have as its only job to assure the safe and unmolested passage of people and goods to any point in the world where they want to go. The Knights Templar did this for the pilgrims that went to Jerusalem. The passage between Europe and Jerusalem was very dangerous. They had to go through, Turkey and all types of wild places, and there was a lot of bandits and some pretty rogue sheikhs and governments that wouldn't let them do that. So the Knights Templar got themselves together. They figured there was a very important thing for folks to be able to go where they wanted to go, because it was the Holy Land, and they assured people safe passage through all the traveling routes. I propose this same type of force to ensure the safe passage of people through the United Nations. That way, for instance, Mexicans could make a pilgrimage to the White House to visit old Obama and smoke a joint with him. And the World Travel Security Force would make sure that the Homeland Security Force would not detain them or stop them or molest them when they're trying to get to their pilgrimage. Or maybe Disneyland. Maybe Mickey Mouse is some type of, iconic figure for Mexicans because, they say Disney was Mexican or whatever. So maybe they should get there and back and be ensured the safe passage by this world force. So I was going to go into, child slaves and nuclear weapons and elephant tusks and all types of illegal stuff that goes on that should not go on. But, we're not going to stop smuggling of children or of drugs or of elephant tusks or nuclear weapons by enforcing a senseless world. We need to focus on what's really bad for us. We all agree then that killing elephants and cutting their tusks is not a good thing, so we need to focus our energy on protecting the elephants, not necessarily worrying about where the elephant tusks go. Because once the elephant is dead, who receives the tusk is the least of our problems. So we need to wake up. We need to get rid of this concept of this nation border business, because the world is one nation. It's one big human nation, and if we don't get that joke, we're all in trouble, because we're going to die. We're going to die murdered by security forces trying to protect our nationality, and that's not in anybody's interest. So that's the show. Thank you for watching. I guess the in conclusion, borders are bad. Let's do away with them. This was Political Corrections Part 1, A World Without Borders. God bless. Have a wonderful 2013. We're still here, guys. We didn't die in 2012. Let's get this shit right. Love you.